Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Reveal Report. I'm your host, George Iceman. Thanks for joining us on this Friday edition as we kick off the weekend with an amazing episode. And basically, we're decoding the Super Bowl halftime show. We're going to touch on that and a few other things. I thank you all for joining us. Remember to like, subscribe, and share. And if you'd like to participate in the chat with the Reveal friendly family that you see in the chat, many of these people that are in the chat have got to know each other here on this platform, and everyone is very courteous and respectful. So please join in by becoming a subscriber. Remember to follow us also on Telegram. We're almost at 10,000 there. On Twitter, 12,000. And we're at 20,000 on Rumble. Wow. I didn't even know I had that many on Rumble, but we're at 20,000 subscribers on Rumble, almost 40,000 here on YouTube. All thanks to you. Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you guys being here because we're going to get into something very interesting. And some people are talking about my goatee. Thanks, guys. Something different. I'm trying something a little bit different. I appreciate you guys noticing that. You see, it's like a big family here. A lot of people know each other, and that's fantastic. I'm excited for the Reveal Report because we're going to bring you some things a little bit different than somebody else. Now, many of you probably seen a few different people dabble into the decode of the halftime show. And I myself wanted to see what they were saying. But it was quite basic, to be honest with you. So I'm going to bring in my co-host, Miss Jessie Czebotar. Jessie, how are you?
Hey, good, George.
Pretty basic. I'm looking at a few other videos. I'm hoping that they're going to give me something I don't know. But of course, they are not going to give me that, at least not the ones that I've seen. So I thought, let's touch on this and let Jessie bring in, what she brings to the table. For those who don't know, Jessie has a strong family roots in this occult world. And she's an author. She's written several books. She understands spiritual warfare. As for myself, I'm a former occultist. And so we're going to bring both of what we have experienced, shared, and have studied with you and hopefully shed a little bit of light. And we'll begin first with Rihanna, the name of the artist. We've done a few decodes with Rihanna and some of her videos and so forth. Yeah. But Jessie, let's begin first off with the pre-show, because before the Super Bowl, there was a commercial that was happening, and it was with her. And I'm going to share a picture because some of the videos we can't play due to copyright infringement. So we got to be very careful here, folks. But this is a picture of the promo video for the Super Bowl. Now, she's got her hair done in a certain way. Her finger is doing the shh, as you can see. Before we even get into that, this is something that's been known time and time again for many, many years in the occult, and different celebrities do it. I'll show you an example. Here's a celebrity. Her name is Madonna. Again, doing the shh. Here's another one. Famous actor, Mr. Downey Jr. This one you might know, Michelle Aniston. And again, we get to the shh, secrecy. But what are we shing about? Jessie, what are your thoughts on this particular picture and what is she trying to say in her shushing?
Yeah, there's a lot of occult symbolism in here. Number one, we notice her hair, which if you go back into Dr. Seuss books, which is huge in the occult world, you'll see a lot of that same type of hairstyle, especially in a particular Dr. Seuss, which is about the Grinch who stole Christmas. And you see even her coat, which kind of looks like goat hair versus other types of animal hair. And the color is very significant. It's green, which usually represents the northern quadrants in the system.
So now let me get this straight here, Jessie, because, you're touching on the color. So the color green isn't just a regular color or has to do with the Grinch of Christmas, but it has to do with the northern quadrants that you were speaking of. Can you
Right.
elaborate a little bit for those that may have missed that show that we touched on that maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago? What are these quadrants? What does it mean? What it's about?
Yeah, so within the system, you have where it breaks down into quadrants in the occult. So individuals will, for ritual, be at one quadrant or the other. You have the north, you have the south, the east, and the west. The north is usually the green color or white. You have the south, which is red or black. You have the west, which is blue, and the east, which is yellow.
And there are the colors for those quadrants, and those are particular cell groups that do what they do, and that will represent them with color. We've done different shows on that, including rings that they might wear and other things. So this was, Jesse, the picture that was the pre-show, and then of course this was her outfit. This is what she wore for the show. She was levitated above. We have a couple of clips. And I want to get into this robe because this is a thing that many celebrities have been doing publicly on television for certain rituals. And we're going to get into this. But she's wearing this specifically red, kind of like a robe. What do you get from seeing this, Jesse, yourself?
Definitely. A lot of high priest or grand high priests or priestesses are displaying themselves in those robes. That's a common public appearance for them. We also see in this particular thing, the elevation is very important. The whole stage, like if you step back and just look at the scene of the entire stage, it's very important. Now, the thing that concerns me more about her outfit, though, is that we see her belt has a Solomonic star on it,
Yes.
which is black. And also the way that her outfit is outlined, it almost is like spirit cooking, where they, cut the woman open who's pregnant, and they will consume the infant with the milk and the blood together. So, that's even more disturbing. And then she's got the diamonds, some being a crescent moon, the other more like the uterus symbol of Ashtaroth. So we see a lot of interesting things, symbology within the different scenes that play out during the Super Bowl show.
I got to say, the colors are very interesting. So I want to touch on that a little bit and share my experience and knowledge of that, Jesse, with everybody, because I think it's key and the meaning to it. There she's wearing a robe. You'll see others wearing robes, but I think it's important that I share with everybody. Usually in certain levels of magic, you actually don't wear a robe. You're actually naked. There's no clothing because clothing interferes with what you're trying to do magically and the energy. So it's not required. I know that you'll see in certain, not all groups will do it, but some of the higher up will do it naked, and then there'll be other things involved. But maybe they'll show up in the main room for the main ritual in robes, then they'll undress and they'll be naked to magnify the power of magic. So technically, it should be naked when you're performing certain rituals. Now, of course, they're not going to be naked on stage in front of the public. So they're going to be robed up, and they choose colors. Each color represents a different state of where you are in the pecking order, whether it be, a witch, a warlock, and so forth. I know that in the heretic version of the Golden Dawn, red represents a particular position. So it depends on what magic that they're conducting. In the end, it's almost all the same, but I think it's key that people understand the meaning of it. So red is used to invoke energies of fire and passion, of course. Red is also used to represent flame and to burn something away. Very important. Red is a powerful color to stop something. So if something's against them, red is another way to use to stop something. It's
Now, let
excellent
me
for,
ask,
yeah,
as you bring that out,
yeah,
because it's interesting that the platforms they're on are flat, you know, or rectangular surfaces, which usually represent ritual ground. Do you think that those are actually representing altars? And have you
correct.
ever heard of people standing on altars to literally be like the living sacrifice or intention that they're sending out?
In occultic practices, it's usually. Hold on, let me rephrase that. In different types of magic, there's different types of altars. Certain magic will be younger people that'll be used in the ritual. Other types of magic, and that's some. We're talking really some hard stuff. Um, they'll use mature adults in their sacrifice. But it's important that everyone understands this isn't a thing that happens all along the board. It's different styles produce different types of magic. So for one style, it'll be youth. Another one will be animals. And another one will be older people. It depends on the power and who they're petitioning and what demonic entity they're dealing with. That's the difference that we're going along in that plateau. That makes sense, Jesse, to you?
Absolutely. And I think, there were some things that I saw here
Mhm.
where between this and the Grammys, just as you said, I believe that they are petitioning certain spirits, invoking certain spirits for their help. I certainly saw Dagon as one, and you kind of get
Mhm.
that feel of water and the movement of water
Mhm.
in what they do. Um, the same thing with the ritual at the Grammys, where that was more of representation of Beelzebub and Baal that were being summoned for that,
Mhm.
and more of the sex magic style. So, I think that they're declaring like what or who they're calling on for the ritual that they're about to perform, not
Mm.
here at the show, but afterwards when they have the real ritual, um, they're declaring who's on their team.
Yes, I agree with that. I just want to also emphasize something. It's important that red is also used in war, especially
Mhm,
when you're dealing with the planetary systems. So, for instance, red invites the energies of Mars.
mhm,
Very important during war and can be used in magic for wars of energies and intentions. So, if she's, for instance, trying to go to war with somebody,
right.
then she would use this to help magnify that power and call upon the energies of Mars. So we're going into the planets now
Mhm.
for her intentions to do battle. So this is not so much maybe a look at me, I'm the queen here, but it could be a calling to battle as if she's going to war. The question is, if she's going to war, with who? That make any sense to you, Jesse?
Absolutely, and I think, what I saw between the 2 shows, and back to my childhood even, it's common that as these grand high priest positions are getting ready to do their battles, they're gonna have women who are gonna step out who will be the sponsors for them.
Mhm.
I believe Madonna was the sponsor for the Grammys, for Sam Smith, and I think Rihanna is the sponsor. I do believe it was Damar, um, that she was sponsoring, and we see, kind of one of the themes that gives it overall credence with the Grand High Priest is that when they take their vows, they use a very specific word. It's called unholy. And
Mhm.
we see Sam Smith declared that word in his song. We see Damar, wore it in his jacket, where literally, he's got this picture of, cartoon-like picture of Christ and shows, the separation, the rolling the dice, casting lots for the clothing. Um,
We're going to get into that. I don't know if you want to
yeah,
jump the
so
gun
we'll get
just
into
yet, but
all that.
yeah,
And
yeah, we're going to get into that. I want to touch on that. I know that people were saying during that they didn't see much, but keep in mind that a lot was done the week before at the Grammys. Again,
Mhm,
I believe to my experience of the red and calling on the energies of Mars, going to war, doing battle. Keep in mind also in hoodoo magic or voodoo, red is powerful in candle magic as well for manifestation. However, I want to just stick to this because I believe there's some type of battle that is about to happen or is going on. And
It already has happened.
Oh,
I'll tell you all about it.
So there's where we're at with this on that aspect. Prior to that, like I said, a week before, we had Sam Smith. We're going to touch on that. The only thing really that that was interesting was I'm going to share a couple of clips of her performance, but this was the last part. This is right at the end that I don't think even appeared on television. So this last part did not appear on TV. So I'm going to share this with you. Take a look. So
the thelemic Aleister Crowley, famous symbol of magic.
There it is. It's the pyramid. So she flashed that to everybody right at the end. Very interesting. Let's show another one here. No volume because there's copyright infringements. I'll show you another one here. Interesting one. Take a look. That demonic face. Here's another.
Thank you, Arizona.
Now, I want to add to everybody for watching that during the Super Bowl, it was said that it was record numbers. But the key is its viewership went up during halftime to see the show. So tons of people tuned in just to see the halftime show. Now, was it people that were fans of Rihanna, or was it people trying to see what kind of demonic evil things she was up to? And that's why people tuned in. Right?
I think it was the second. They were like, okay, we know now they're communicating.
Yes.
What's really going on?
100%. So we've given you already some information about the Rihanna halftime show. You know, we've touched on the color. We've touched on what we think it is, the meaning of her being pregnant, their hairdo, meaning of color, going to war. There's a lot of things. Her belt, the symbol she flashed at the end. These are all key things, and it's a lot. So maybe you go back to understand it. But when you're supporting these artists, you're giving up your own free will. And you've agreed to allow them to do what they do. When you show up to one of their concerts, you're participating in a ritual, and you've given your own free will to be a part of whatever spell they are casting. Just know that's what it is. It's not, oh, I'd love to be there and it's just entertaining. Unfortunately, with these people, everything is spell casting, everything is magic, and they're going to use your energy. In fact, during one of the pictures I'm going to show you, this is called, I'll share this with you. Take a look. Let me get that picture up so you guys can see what I'm talking about. Now, here's a better one. Now, those are lights. A lot of those are flashlights as well from people's cell phones. So you're turning on your cell phone to participate in a ritual of magic. Now, let me explain this to you. If you weren't at that show and you were in a room, you'd be holding a candle. It's the same thing. You're involved. You've given up your own free will to participate in a magic ritual. So if you're not there holding up your phone with the light on, the alternative to that would be you holding a candle. So understand, this is real. It's very real. Now I want to take us to what happened a week before, just a little decode on this, because this is the talk of the town. This was the performance that basically had the whole world talking about Sam Smith or whatever his name is, but I'm going to share it with you. Keep in mind, I can't play the music because of copyright infringements, but take a look at this little clip that I found. It speaks for itself. Here it is.
Kim Petras and Sam Smith had an epic night at the 2023 Grammys. The duo hit the stage to deliver a majorly racy performance of their hit song Unholy. Kim was seen on stage in a cage surrounded by dancers with whips. Sam rocked a bright red top hat with horns while belting out the song for the audience, and the crowd went wild for their performance.
The performance was unholy. It was, again, in the red. We've talked about that, in the robes. Just really satanic, and they're really pushing it forward.
Mhm.
And I'm quite shocked that they're being so blunt about it, but they're not holding back in any way, shape, or form. Let me show you a picture here. Here's Sam Smith in a red devil hat. And then his co-singer writer, who is transgender, by the way, is in a cage on fire. Jesse, thoughts on this imagery?
Yeah, absolutely. We have, Sam who's looking like he's dressed like, several different spirits actually, but Lucifer himself, the devil, with his feet look like they're clawed feet. The way that he moves is very reminiscent of, the half goat, half man imagery. You also have the top hat, which is very common for those who are in the grand high priest to, when they appear in public, to wear those top hats. You also have the spirit of Beelzebub. Several times in that performance, he sticks out his tongue, which is very reminiscent of that spirit.
Mhm.
You also, with the imagery with the horns and what looks like the goat-like figure, you also have a spirit that's the first that the Masons, level 20, they're going to say that name, which is Hameth Horhash. So you have several different representations there of the spirits. It is interesting with the transgender. You kind of have that Baphomet imagery as well, where everything, they've kind of got this as it is above, so it is below imagery going on. Yeah, and the other interesting thing is the pearls too. I'm glad you showed that picture because that is, as we've talked about, some of the Masonic, or let me rephrase that, some of the orders in the system. The highest orders, you're going to have the Golden Dawn and the Phoenix, but the top order is the Order of Melchizedek, which is, it's very common for them to wear the pearls to display that they're part of that highest order in the system.
Yeah, I mean, he sold out. There's videos and pics you could see of him before he got into this, and he seemed like a good gentleman. But he's completely changed. I don't know. He doesn't consider himself male or female. And I don't want to incorrectly say it because there's so many different things, but he's not that. Something else that he claims that he is. So he's completely changed as an individual, as a human being. And they're striving and hoping that they'll overcome what's happening in the world today. When I say that, I'm saying that we're in a spiritual war, in a spiritual battle. And it is said that the time of vengeance is upon us, not so much for us, but for those that hate, rebuke, and despise the Lord God Almighty. They will pay for their sins. It's coming. It's happening. Watch it. Just be prepared. Fasten your seatbelts. We're in for a bumpy ride. But again, a lot of the people in the media are still in control. They'll begin to lose power as they are in every other form of government. But hold tight. You're going to see things unfold really quickly. Here's another photo, Jesse, I'm going to share with you. Look at this ensemble. Just look at this ensemble.
I'm really glad you shared this one because, this is common in, my childhood. I would see, before the battles, the grand high priest would appear. They declare themselves with their major high priest and priestesses who are standing with them. You see the men in his group, dressed in the traditional high priest garb.
Yep.
And you see the, very provocative woman garb. Now, what was transpiring for all this that we see and what they were declaring is that I did a decode of the Vogue magazine with Madonna on it.
Mhm.
And in that, she was signaling that there were major, battles for the Grand High Priest going on. The symbology that she used in that photo represented the 3 feasts of suffering that happen in February, which are, February 3rd, which is St. Blaise Day. That represents when St. Blaise, who was in Savos, Turkey, George, this is
Mhm.
important. He was in Savos, Turkey, and he saved a child from choking on a fishbone, right?
Hmm.
So think about this, that it was actually the day after February 3rd where all of a sudden Turkey had a massive earthquake. Then we have the second Feast of Suffering, which happens on February 11th and is connected to Lourdes, France. The ideology behind that one is that Lourdes is where they have a healing pool where water, it said that the angels stir the water for healing. We saw shortly after that, there were some other natural disasters that started to happen in other areas on the 12th through the 14th. And then the third ritual is February 14th, which deals with Saint Valentine, and he came from Terni, Italy. And so just as their schedule goes, we saw it actually happened the day before on the 13th, where Terni, Italy had an earthquake.
Wow.
So there was a lot of significant things to, these 2 events. And actually the symbol, one of the symbols, Madonna on that Vogue magazine, she wore a rosary with 5 beads, which represent the 5 mysteries or the 5 agonies that Christ suffered. These are, when I, in my childhood, we learned that these 5 sufferings are also connected to the Grand High Priest rituals. So you see the agony in the garden, you see the scourging at the pillar, you see the crowning with the thorns. So think about Damar's jacket, that he displays those events, the carrying of the cross and the crucifixion and death of the cross. So there was a lot of interconnected symbology that we see, these men declaring that they're going to be part of these grand high priest rituals for the system.
So that's one. I want to get into that jacket that you were discussing. This is the football player, Damar Hamlin, who had that stroke, heart attack, a heart situation on the field. Looked like he died. They brought him to the hospital. He was there. Then he was released. And he showed up to the football game with this jacket. And it looks like a complete mockery of Jesus Christ. There's Jesus' face. It looks cartoonish. Jesse, what do you think about his actions? Now it says, I believe, eternal on it.
Right. I mean, he claims to be Christian, but so do a lot of, individuals in the brotherhood system.
Yeah.
It does say eternal, which that goes back to the grand high priest vows. Not only are they considered unholy, but they're considered eternal. We also see, the depiction of Jesus is just not quite right. And to be honest, it looks like, like what we would see with what they call smocking, where you have the child artwork, the child drawings, you've got the weird colors that aren't quite in place. So I think it's very reminiscent of some of those things, the smocking and declaring the vows. Also, like we said, within those 5 mysteries or the sufferings, the crucifixion and death on the cross is one of them. So, are these men, you know, depicting some of the things that they're going to have to go through as they're taking these vows?
I should mention to everybody watching that a lot of people came out publicly, including former WWE wrestling champion Bill Goldberg, against him for what he did, thinking it was just a mess. A lot of people really did not like his jacket, and some people publicly spoke up against it. But again, you'll know them by their symbolism.
Mhm.
They'll let you know who they are, who they play for. And when I mean play for, I mean which side they're on, even though they claim to believe in Jesus. Now,
Right.
just because you believe in Jesus doesn't mean you follow Jesus. There's a big difference there, folks. So they may claim they believe in Jesus. Well, you're going to have to if you're worshiping Lucifer or Satan or any other demonic entity. So, yeah, he believes in him, but does he
Well, let
follow
me
him?
share this because it goes deeper.
Hmm.
That jacket, we talked about the 5 mysteries, the 5 sufferings, but what's deeper in that is that and this was also depicted on that Vogue magazine when Madonna dressed up like Mary, with the heart and the different swords through it. That imagery is actually connected to a very famous prayer called the Golden Prayer, which is about the suffering of Mary. Now,
Mhm.
listen to some of the depictions in this prayer. It says, I offer to you the most holy wounds of Jesus and of the incarnate heart of Mary. I offer the precious blood and the water from the sacred heart of Jesus. I offer you wounds, pains, tears, sorrows, Jesus and Mary. So, isn't it interesting that, again, we've got the symbology that goes to things that really are not, they're really not of Jesus. They're part of, the hidden vows that those who are highest in the system take.
Yeah. You're talking about the 5 wounds. Can you explain to everybody the 5 wounds?
Yeah, so the 5 wounds are going to be, the agony that he went through in the garden,
Mhm.
where it says that, it was so bad that he began to sweat blood. Um, you have the scourging at the pillar, which, he was flogged until he was,
Flogged.
yep.
Yeah.
You've got the crowning of the thorns. You have the carrying of the cross, and you have the crucifixion and death on the cross. So these high priests literally go through like a mockery of this. I've talked a little bit about what I saw with the agony in the garden. These elite will have huge mansions and massive tiered gardens. My experience was that, the garden where I saw it happen, it was in the lower gardens, and as you walk in there, you see these gardens that are laid out almost like a pinwheel. In the center, there's a fountain, and then there's like all these waterways that connect to that fountain almost like a pinwheel. And then over to, the left side, as you're walking into that area, they have an area where they have statues that are carrying these big burdens on their shoulders and over their heads, and they're hunched over, weighed down. What they do is the high priest will start at that spot. They literally will chain them. They'll have these chains and they'll have things that are binding them that they call burdens. Then what I saw was that, on the right side, they have an altar to the spirits that they're connecting to there. And literally, as the priests, put on those burdens, all of a sudden, as the ritual starts, um, they start to hear their loved ones, people that they care about, crying out from those pinwheel areas. Like it's cement that goes down, and people are chained in there, and it begins to fill with water.
Hmm.
So they're being drowned. And the priests, if they're lucky, if they can get their burdens off, they have to try to rescue their loved ones before they drown. But what the system is looking for, they're looking for that one grand high priest who's not going to do a thing. He's going to sit there and he's going to let all of his loved ones die. So that's the ritual, the agony in the garden that I had witnessed.
And you got to see that. Wow. I'm going to remind everybody after the show today, we're going to do a special Q&A, a live roundtable with myself and Jessie on Patreon. You could be a part of this and join Patreon. The link is in the description. Just a reminder to all those who have never become Patreoners that some of the videos that we do, we never upload publicly. So you'll never be able to see them. They're private and they stay on our platform, and that's it. So that's part of the perks. You get to see them and watch them over and over, but we don't share them publicly. I also want to thank all the Patreons for supporting, because without you, there would be no show even on YouTube. Initially, Jessie, I was going to stop doing YouTube completely, not do this. This show would be exclusive to Patreons only. Because they support the show and because of their monthly donation a little bit, it keeps me going and to support the show. So I do appreciate any support through PayPal, and there's been a couple of people that showed a lot of love. So thank you so much. Again, follow us after this on Patreon, because Jessie, you're going to break some news about some court things. That's all. I can't say too much, but all I can say is some court issues. We're going to discuss some documents. The police are involved, the FBI, a whole lot of things are going on. We're going to discuss and get into it. Let's talk about the final person. Last year, we did a decode on this guy, and that's The Weeknd. Again, in red. Loving that red. And
and they all have their little band of warriors, we recognize, because you can't go into a witchy or warlock battle alone. You got to display your warriors and your army with you.
You have to. Now, The Weeknd has got a tour for 2023, and he's touring around the world. This tour currently is basically pretty perplexing. And in one of the scenes, I'll show you here in a pic, and it's hard for you to see because the stage is usually lit up in red, but the backdrop is a post-apocalyptic city burnt down to the ground. And during the concert, you see it burn and explode. So it's very dark, very evil.
Yeah. And I want to point out the costume of the women. That is traditional.
We're going to get there. We're going to get there, Jessie. Right now, we're just looking at this building that's on fire, post-apocalyptic. There he is, standing in it like he's the great king of this apocalyptic time. Now, I think what you're referring to are these women in the old vintage robes surrounding him during his ritual. Is that what you're discussing?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So what are your thoughts on these women in red robes?
Well, that's during the high rituals. That's where you're going to see, the basic robes like that, with the faces covered, and it's like a thin veil over. And usually, we had two different colors. Either we had black or we had white, based on the ritual. For my rank, so this rank is going to display either grand high priest or priestesses, or sometimes it could be sisters of light who are going to dress that way. Usually they will dress that way, when, whenever they're going to be causing some natural disasters. Depending on the robes, some represent pestilence. Some of their clothing would represent if they're going to bring fire, affecting things that way, or if they're going to be doing things in the air, or in the water. So, their garb is going to tell you kind of what, if it's going to be weather magic, if it's going to be, pestilence, famine, sword. So that's what they're depicting there. And, it's not by accident that it's curious. When was this, this particular event?
This shows the current tour. This is a picture of the current tour. This is what's happening.
Okay. So it's interesting that we see a lot of the buildings falling down
Yes.
in different major cities around the world.
Yes.
And, I wanted to bring that out, that
Yes.
as these grand high priests battle for their positions, it's very common for them to have to display their magical power. And so, they will display it with, a disaster, with pestilence, with something. And we do see that happening right now.
It's happening everywhere right now, Jesse. You're
Right.
seeing the explosions, the buildings, just like this concert, just like you see in this picture depicted. This is what's truly happening. It's like they're telling you what they're going to do before you do it. We've already said this, and they're making it bringing it into fruition. So it's very, very important. What I would like to do, though, Jesse, is I'd like to share a clip. I'm going to play this maybe once or twice, but it's a clip from the concert, and I want you to listen to it very, very carefully, because it sounds like there's a ritual. There is The Weeknd, center stage. You'll see some things. Listen carefully, and then we'll talk about it briefly.
Asmodeus, Satanas, Lucifer.
And I'm going to play that again. Keep in mind, it goes back to what we talked about. War, red representing war, going to battle, and there he has buildings of destruction. And then the energy, calling upon the energy of Mars. And what do we see in that video? Bam! Just like I said, Mars going to war. There's the red energy, like I discussed earlier in the show. Here's the clip again. Take a look.
Asmodeus, Satanas, Lucifer.
So it's right in front of our face, Jesse. We could see it. Let's get into it. They mentioned 5 different demon names in that show. That's actual wording from the concert. So what you're hearing is not song lyrics of like it's actual, the names of actual demonic generals. Maybe I'll let you touch on that, Jesse.
Well, and it's important also to understand that this actually comes from a very specific high-level occultic book called The Red Dragon, where those names in order are the spirits that you're going to summon before you get to that last one, Lucifer, as you're working your way through. And so that's important. And I did find that name of that 5th one, or that 4th one we were looking at before, Lucifer. But they're literally summoning these spirits for help, and working their way through, because next they're summoning Lucifer to come and appear at this last ritual that they're going to appear at.
I mean, this is crazy stuff, and it's happening. So these are the concerts that are happening that some of your loved ones, friends, and family are a part of. They're going to it, and when they pay their money to participate, they're part of the ritual, and they're going to have to deal with this. Unfortunately, it's not just a form of entertainment. Not anymore. They're right in your face. They're telling you who they worship. They're telling you who they summon. They're telling you who they work for. So it's up to you to say, no, you want no part of it, to concentrate on the war that's happening right now, in the spiritual war. Now, it may not look at it, Jesse, I will say, it may not look at it to a lot, but we are winning. Trust me when I tell you, we are winning. We are winning in so many ways. Portals are being closed, gateways, spiritual rituals are not being done anymore, because They just can't summon who they want to summon. There is something happening in the supernatural realm that is unexplained. God Almighty is interceded. Jesus Christ is watching over us. There is a time that's going to shock the world. We are in that time right now, folks. Very, very important that you guys are all prayed up and that you're giving the proper love, appreciation, and thanks to God Almighty. We will win. It's biblical. It says we win.
Well, it even was displayed in these rituals, their feast days. They, as the priests begin to declare themselves, they're supposed to cause a disaster of some sort with that. They will declare a pattern for those disasters to appear that go along with those ritual feast dates. Because they started, right after on the 3rd, that declared the 3-6-9 pattern.
Yeah.
So technically we should have seen disasters, we did for the first 2 where we saw them right after the very next day. But that 3rd one, actually we saw the disaster happen the day before, like that night before the ritual.
Correct.
So I believe that, that we had good guys who were responding, going in there in those certain areas. And, I believe that they were, taking care of business and making sure that things in those areas were not prospering like these guys had intended. So,
yeah.
So
guys, again, like I'm saying, we coming from the occult, and I still speak to some of these people to understand, what they're doing with their life and what's happening. And they're not opening up the doorways like they'd like to open up doorways. It's just not happening, folks. That's a fact. That's a fact. I sometimes on my other show on Patreon, I do a special show where I discuss dates and times. I go into the actual locations. I'll talk about the exact ritual that they're doing, and nothing happened. It's not happening now. So they're in for the fight of their lives. So again, you have power, you have energy, and you make a difference. So give glory to God Almighty, give him thanks and praise, and we will continue this fight. Hold that line, ladies and gentlemen, because God wins. Jessie, in closing, we're going to go to Patreon. We're going to do an amazing Q&A, and we're going to get into a certain breaking story about some documents that were released that you're going to tell us about. That's coming up next. The link is in the description. But how can people follow you and support your ministry?
Absolutely. You can find me on Patreon and also on kingdomlivingwithjessie.com, as well as illuminatethedarkness.com. I encourage you to visit kingdomlivingwithjessie.com. My tickets for my live taping of my next course, The Rise of the Righteous, have gone on sale. If you can make it for that, that's great. If not, that course will be going up on there, so you can always get it later. But it's going to be a great time. You get to come, very intimate retreat-like center, and you get to watch the whole thing from start to finish.
Excellent. And guys, I know you guys are looking about information about our upcoming event. I'm just dotting the I's, crossing a T's, and then I'll give you some more information. I got to do something on my end, and we're almost there. We're almost at the finish line. We're going to be announcing an event, so hold tight. On that note, guys, thank you for watching, supporting, and showing your love. For those that can, and keep this show here every Friday night on YouTube. Anything goes a long way on PayPal. So if you can, please go to paypal.me/George Iceman. That's paypal.me/George Iceman. The link is in the description. I thank you all for watching. Lots of love, support, and remember to give glory to God. We're going to go to Patreon next, Jessie. So we hope to see some of you there. I thank you all for watching. We'll see you next week. God bless and good night.